G'day Internet, welcome back to another video and back to the Amiga 2000. This is the companion video that I did promise down in the comments of the last one. Now, the point of this video is to go through some of the trials and tribulations that went into restoring this machine, and hand on heart, it's still not 100% complete, and we'll get to that as we go through. To put it into perspective, this machine, just on filming, took about 5 days across the space of, well, 2 weekends, an extra day I had off work, and a couple of evenings. Now, that does include editing and things that went wrong mid-filming. All I can say is that it gives me a new appreciation of guys like Neil from RMC and the work that goes into producing their videos. Now, in saying that, Neil does it full-time. I have a fairly stressful full-time job, and there are simply weekends where I just go, no, it's not happening. But it also does explain why, on the very rare occasion, we'll get a Patreon message from Neil kind of going, yeah, things went a little sideways, there's going to be a bit of a delay. But on the subject of the actual video making side of things, let's start with why I made that particular video. At the end of the day, my videos tend to be talking head, do something, talking head, goodbye, we're done. Now, a lot of that simply does come down to time restraints. Like I said, I've got a full-time job. There are other things I need to do on weekends. And so for me, it's become a reasonably easy, straightforward format for my videos. And for the most part, I do enjoy it. But from a creativity point of view, it does, after a while, get a little kind of ho-hum. And after nearly 5 years of being on YouTube, I wanted to try something different. Now, the Amiga 2000 was never actually meant to be a video. It was a machine I picked up dirt cheap, well, not that dirt cheap, but cheap, secondhand in a completely trash state. And it's the reason why Nathan actually ended up doing the repairs on the main board, because when I got it, I was like, this is a machine I would really like to build up, but it's going to take ages and ages and ages. I just don't have the time to do both the physical restoration and the electronic repairs. Hey Nathan, do you want to have a crack at this? And he's like, sure, I've never touched an Amiga before, but I'll give it a go. We'll get into the finer details of that a bit later on in this video. So where do we start? Well, let's start from the top, the monitor. As it will come as no surprise, that's a 3D printed front door because they're all missing or broken or whatever. This is a monitor that I think I originally got from Mark from the Retro channel because... So the reason I got this particular monitor was that I was doing a display at work with my BBC Micro, and it turns out that Philips, who makes this monitor, did an identical one simply with an Acorn badge. And so I made a quick and dirty little Acorn badge to go on this, and this went on display with the BBC Micro at work for an event I had having there. Now, in saying that, this isn't quite the matching monitor for an for an Amiga 2000. The matching monitor for this should have 1084S badge on here. Technically, I think this Amiga badge is actually for the Amiga 1000, but I think it's a nice match regardless. This has only digital TTL, composite, and a SCART connector on the back, so I did have to make up a SCART cable, but that was easy enough. The keyboard, this was purchased separately for a ridiculous amount of money, and when I got it, it was orange. This has been retro-brighted. And it's just simply one of those things that didn't make it into the video due to timing and pacing and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, it's a keyboard that got retrobrated. Now, most of my work that went into this machine was the physical restoration. I'll put up a photo on the day I got it. Now, this, A, it's not a really great photo, and B, doesn't really show the damage that this machine had. There was a crack down through here, if I remember, and I think there was a crack up here somewhere as well. So this had to have all the cracks repaired. It was also really faded. It wasn't actually yellowed, it was faded. It was real weird. But this got completely then sanded and filled and sanded and filled and sanded and filled and repainted. Now, the paint I used for this, I can't actually remember what it was. And the reason I can tell you that is that halfway through filming, I had this cover off a million times, and I'd actually knocked a corner of the paint, because this has been repainted as well, and there was a big chip in the paint right in the corner. It may even pop up in the video somewhere. And I thought, right, I'm going to quickly respray the little LED panel here, and you might be able to tell on camera, it's actually a slightly different color because I painted it with the paint that I thought I'd used on the rest of the front of the case, and it turns out it was a different color. So it is a hair lighter. And it might actually be closer to the correct color. I'm not 100% sure. The main chassis kind of case bit also got completely sanded back and repainted, and the paint I used for that was actually the paint that I used for the front door of the monitor, and it was a custom mix. I actually took this monitor out to the local paint place like I've done in the past, had the color scanned, had a pressure pack made up, and that's the paint I used both on the front door and on the metal case. Internally on the chassis there was some repairs, mainly to the bracket that goes kind of about here-ish, which mounts the power supply and the disk drive. Two of the screws at the back, the threads in the metal had completely stripped out, so they required drilling out, and I actually tack welded some nuts in behind where the thread used to be, and gave it a quick coat of paint to stop rusting. And someone, the previous owner, I'm assuming, there's the two brackets that come down from that kind of other bracket to mount a CD-ROM, or at least a 5¼ inch drive, because I've seen photo of these with a normal 5¼ inch drive in them. I'm thinking that's for the IBM PC board, maybe. Anyway, they basically bent them completely out of the way, and they'd shoved in what I think is an MFM drive. I might actually even have it here. Hang on. No, can't find it. But it was literally one of those half-height drives that you would put into an IBM PC. I think what had them in it? I think the XT286 might have had them. They're the ones, and it even still had the black front fascia on it, and it had basically just been wedged in there. So they needed straightening out as well. They're still not 100%, but they're closer than what it was. And finally, from a physical restoration point of view, these two blanking panels just here are 3D printed, sanded, painted, etc., etc. Now, the main board that Nathan repaired. Quick one. The main board that's in this is not actually my original main board. So when I got this machine, it had a Rev 4.4 board in it. And like a week later, Nathan picked up two more Amiga 2000s. Actually, one of them might have been a 2500, but same main board. And they were both Rev 6s. And essentially, they got nicknamed Good, Bad, and Ugly. Mine got nicknamed Good. No, not at all. Over the span of about 4 months, that board went back and forth between me and Nathan several times, where Nathan worked on it originally for quite a while, had it all working, put it in, nope, dead as a doornail. It went back. I poked at it for a while trying to work out what it was, swapping Angus chips, RAM, things like that. Nope. It went back. It came back again and through a different error, and then he took it back and just basically declared it dead. Now, Nathan's since gone and purchased one of the new shiny Amiga 2000 PCBs, so that main board will live on because Nathan will use parts of it to build up a brand spanking new main board, which is nice. And I ended up getting one of his Rev 6 boards. Now, even one of these Rev 6 boards, I think I ended up getting bad, and these are the repairs that he did, and I've got a list. Right, so battery leak trace repair, resocketed all custom chips, rust removal on all the ports, replaced the AV keyboard joystick ports, the keyboard circuit had a blown pull-down resistor. He put in the new battery adapter, which you might have seen in the video, which takes an 2032 battery. He completely recapped it. He completely cleaned the board. And I didn't actually realize this until he sent me the list the other day, that my power supply actually got completely recapped as well. That was nice. Although he did miss the massive, huge reefer cap, which is part of the mains filter where the actual IEC socket is, and I replaced that. So that's all the work that went into this main board, and so that doesn't include all the work that went into the original Rev 4.4 board. The hard drive SCSI controller that's in this machine with the 2 meg of fast RAM on it, it actually just worked. The board, that is. The 160 meg, and yes, there was a typo in the video where I think I put 160 gig. The 160 meg hard drive that's in this machine is hard drive number 4, I think, because there was the original hard drive that was in it. It failed. I put a 40 meg in it. It failed. I put an 80 meg in it. It failed, and now it's got a 160 meg hard drive in it, and it actually got pulled from, I've got a parts LC575 machine kind of just down here, which will eventually become a Mystic mod for a Color Classic, so it donated its hard drive. And that hard drive replacement actually happened mid-filming, which is always a nice thing to have happened. Luckily, I've gotten pretty good at installing Workbench 2 and just a few things that I tend to put on a basic image. So like Directory Opus, Secret of Monkey Island, Sysinfo, things like that. Now, admittedly, all those were actually installed from a Gotek, not the original disk drive. Speaking of the disk drive, you will remember in the video I made a point of saying that the original disk drive had completely failed and I couldn't get it to do anything, and I'd replaced it with a normal kind of height disk drive with a custom fascia and some extra standoffs. That disk drive actually came out of a external chassis that I had kicking around, and that's why it's a weird kind of height but still an Amiga drive. But you may notice that that drive is no longer in the machine, because about 2/3 of the way through filming, just as I went to start filming the extra game footage, so obviously Secret of Monkey Island is installed on the hard drive, that just worked, but then I went to put in the Double Dragon disc, nothing, wouldn't boot from it at all. And I screwed around for ages, and essentially that disk drive died as well. Let's just say at that point, that drive is no longer in the physical shape that it originally was. This drive here is actually out of one of my Amiga 500s. It uses the slightly higher disk drive that this one does, but a slightly different front fascia. Well, that's not true. The front fascia fits, as you can see, but the actual kind of lever for the button and where the button actually attached to is to a different. So that's an Amiga 500 button, slightly modified to shift it over like a millimeter, and that's why the button is the wrong color. So what else went wrong in this video? Oh, about 3/4 of the way through, the monitor died. Yeah, that was nice. I had no red. Red disappeared. And so I've just, well, I nearly started crying. But if you've been watching Mark's channel recently, you know he's been doing a lot of 1084 repairs, and I rang him up and just kind of went, help. So he rocked around with the 1084 kind of version of this monitor, and we started off by simply doing a board swap, and this one came to life. So it's not the red gun in the actual CRT. Something went put on the main board in the monitor, and that's currently what's in this. But because its ports were slightly different, this is also Mark's back half of the monitor as well. So yeah, that was the other thing that went wrong at the worst possible time. Oh, and there's one more thing that went wrong midway through filming. You may have actually noticed that that label disappears at some point. Now, the reason behind that is that something, and I still don't know what, splashed against this. I don't remember knocking anything over, although I wasn't really in the best frame of mind at the time, because I think it was when the disk drive died, and it, what I thought had completely trashed the paint. And given the days, hours, whatever, that had already gone into repainting the front of this machine, honestly, at that point, I thought it was just over. I was just ready. That's it. Game over. We're done. And that evening, someone, Keith from Facebook, went, why don't you try and use a magic eraser on it? And I thought, that's not going to work. But magic eraser being the most tiny little bit of abrasive, managed to just, whatever the staining was that whatever had splashed on it had done to the clear coat, because this is all covered in satin clear, was just enough to remove those stains, and I kept going with the project, but God, was I ready to give up at that point. But other than all of those things, it's now running fine. I do still want to do something about that button or find another drive or something like that. But there was like one on eBay the other day and it went for like some stupid amount of money for an Amiga 2000 disk drive. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. But going forward, the next thing for this machine is going to be upgrades. And I like upgrades. But I think they're kind of going to be a mixture of period correct where I can, and modern where it just makes sense. So, as an example, one thing I would like to put into this is an old school accelerator card. Yes, I could drop a Pi-Storm in there or something along those lines, but part of me really wants a nice, like period correct 020 or 030 accelerator card in this. I think that'd be really nice. But on the flip side, given that I'm on hard drive number 4, I think a modern hard drive solution would be good. I've got sitting there both a blue SCSI and a RAR SCSI, which I want to try, and if not happy with either of those, I'm guessing the good old-fashioned SCSI to SD is always a good solution as well. Disk drive-wise, I'm not sure. The easiest thing to do would be to put a Gotek in this. Job done, whatever. But given how much work I've put into the look of this machine, having a Gotek kind of hanging out the front is going to kind of ruin that a little, I think. So what I'm more likely to do is to get this one looking a bit more presentable, and probably put a switchless DF0 DFO switch in it, and run an external Gotek, and I think that'd be a little nicer, at least from a looks point of view. The last thing I may look at is what's called, I think one of the versions at least is called a Ramesses, which if I can find an 8375 Agnes, it essentially enables you to have 2 meg of chip, which would be quite a nice little upgrade for an Amiga 2000. But all of that is for a future video or videos. For right now, I have certainly had my fill of Amiga 2000, and I've got some other projects I do want to move on with, and Septandy is just around the corner, so I'll be spending the next while kind of gathering parts, working out exactly what I want to do. If you've got any suggestions regarding the upgrades and such, or any more questions about this machine, feel free to put them in the comments. But for now, that will pretty much do it. If you liked the video, like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff. As always, a massive shout out to my Patreons who are scrolling up the screen as I speak, because they allow me to spend ridiculous amounts of time trying to perfect vintage old computers. And if you'd like to help support the channel, there is a link in the description. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.